Hey boys and girls, I'm going to show you where you can find your assignment for Social Studies Lesson 3.4, and we're going to go through how you're going to complete that assignment. I'm going to start by clicking into the Social Studies course, going down to the HCS Supplemental Resources, and Module 3, Federal Expansion, and we're doing 3.4, The Great Migration. And click on that. And this is the same type of setup as the previous lessons. You've got it all on one page in different parts. I broke it up with lines here to kind of section it off for you to make it a little bit easier to go through. I'm going to go through it right now with you, and we'll talk about what you're doing for the assignment. So around the time of the Roaring 20s, the Great Migration occurred. You're going to be exploring what the Great Migration was. You've got an image here to get you started. And then you've got part one. Part one has two steps. Step one is to take out the same KWLH chart that you've been working on. You started this KWLH chart in 3.1 or 3.2, I should say. 3.1, I apologize. So make sure that you continue to keep this chart. You're going to be adding to it the same chart throughout the entire Module 3. Please continue to do that because you're going to have to turn it in at the end. So you're going to take out that chart and you're going to complete the K and the W columns, writing the things that you know and the things that you want to know about the Great Migration. Okay, so you're going to fill out the K and the W portion of the KWLH chart. And if you lost that chart, you're going to have to go back to the beginning of this module to print it out, or you can be doing it in your notebook. Step two, you're going to read the article, The Great Migration, by clicking on this link, or you can listen to it by clicking on this link. You can use that article, or you can listen to that article being read. Okay, part two, you're going to see if you can discover more details about the time period in American history by watching the Great Migration video. So you're going to click on this link and you're going to watch the video. Step one is to watch the video and fill in the vocabulary part of the assignment. You're going to re-watch the video and answer questions 1 through 4 on the assignment. So now that we're to the assignment part of the of this activity, all the way at the bottom under attachments, you're going to see 3.4 assessment. That's your assignment. So you're going to click on that, and I'll pull up here. You've got 2 vocabulary words. And it says, based on the video and the articles from part 1 and part 2, you're not going to get credit if you use Google. What are the definitions for the following words? So what's the definition of the Great Migration? You'd write it here. And what's the definition of integrated? You'll write right here. And again, you can get those definitions from part 1 and part 2 of this assignment. After you do point 2, or part 2, you also can do step 2 and answer questions 1 through 4 after you rewatch this video, the Great Migration video. So let's look at questions 1 through 4. Number 1, who moved during the Great Migration? Make sure you answer this in a complete sentence. You can type it or handwrite it here. Number 2, why did they move? Okay, make sure you write in complete sentences for this answer as well. Why did they move? Why did the people who moved during Great Migration actually move? Number 3, where did they move to? And number 4, what were the effects of the Great Migration? So make sure for numbers 1 through 4, you answer using complete sentences. And again, you can get those answers right from the part 2 video, The Great Migration. You might want to watch that video 2 or 3 times to get those answers. Once you're done with part 2, you'll move on to part 3. It says, you have learned about the Great Migration, but what effects did it have on South Carolina? So now we're focusing on our state of South Carolina. Step 1 is to read the article, The Great Migration and South Carolina. If you don't want to read it, you can also listen to it being read by clicking on this link. And then you're going to answer question 5 by filling out the chart and question 6. So we're going to go back to the assignment. Let's look at 5 and 6. So 5, you're looking at factors that pushed African Americans out of South Carolina. So what were reasons that led African Americans to leave South Carolina? You'd put 2 push factors, reasons they left South Carolina. And then on the right side of the chart, factors that pulled African Americans to move to the North. So for this side of the chart, you're focusing on what was happening in the North that led them to want to go to the North. Why did African Americans want to go to the North? What opportunities were they going to have if they moved to the North? So that's number 5. And number 6, why did white South Carolinians move during this time period? So not only did African Americans move during the Great Migration, but there were also white South Carolinians who also moved. Why did they move during this time period? You're going to handwrite or type your answer under number 6. Okay, so that's part 3. Part 4, it says primary source documents can teach us a lot about the perspectives of people who lived during a certain time. Just a note, a primary source document is a document that comes from that time period, a newspaper article, a journal, a diary entry, a photo. And those primary source documents, they can give us a perspective of people who lived during that certain time, meaning we can get an idea of how those people were feeling and thinking because it's coming from that time period. So now that you have learned about the Great Migration, consider what one young man did during this time. So here you've got a letter, a young man's letter. You can read or listen to the letter being read, and you're going to answer questions 1 through 6 on the assignment using the article, A Young Man's Letter. So there are, if you look at the assignment, you can see, I know we already had number 1, but if you keep going to your 3rd page here, you've got based on a young man's letter. Now you've got more questions. So you're answering number 1 through 6 under a young man's letter after you read or listen to that article in part 4. So the questions that go along with a young man's letter: how old was the boy who wrote the letter? For this one, you can either circle the answer, or I put a spot right here that you can write or type the answer, meaning you put A, B, C, or D, whichever answer is correct, you'd put right here, or you can circle it. And then number 2, why did the boy write the letter? Again, this is a multiple choice question, but you can either circle the correct answer or you can write the correct answer on the answer line. Number 3, why did he ask if a colored boy could make a white man's salary in the North? So my question here is, why did he ask that? And a salary is how much you make when you work. So why did he ask if a colored boy could make a white man's salary? How much a white man would make working in the North? And again, you're answering, why did he ask that? Number 4, why would a boy in the 1900s as a company in the North for work? Why would a boy in the 1900s? I'm sorry, that should say ask. Why would a boy in the 1900s ask a company in the North for work? I'm sorry, that was a typo. This should be ask. Why would a boy in the 1900s ask a company in the North for work? So you're answering that question of why would a boy ask a company in the North to work for that company? Why would he ask? Number 5, what do you think happened as a result of the letter? Make sure you explain what you think would happen and why you thought that would happen. And number 6, what is the perspective of this boy? How do you know? Again, perspective is like their opinion, their thoughts, their feelings. So what is their point of view or their perspective, their thoughts, their feelings? And how do you know that that's his perspective? What in the text, what in the letter here led you to believe that that was whatever you said his perspective was, is? Okay, so what was the evidence? How do you know? All right, part 4. Okay, so part 5. So it says you have just learned about the Great Migration. Take some time to reflect upon what you've learned. Step 1, you're going to go back to your KWLH chart and you're going to complete the L and the H columns, including what you learned about the Great Migration. And remember, you're going to be using this KWLH chart throughout this entire module. So it's going to be useful for you to be able to study at the end for your assessment. So make sure that you're continuing to fill out that KWLH chart because at the end you are going to have to submit it. You do not have to submit it for this assignment. You'll submit it at the end of the module. So make sure that you continue to fill it out as you go through each lesson of the module. Part 6, you're going to submit your 3.4 assessment, okay? And that was this assessment here. It's 4 pages long. I just walked you through how to answer each question. So this is what you're going to be turning in, all 4 pages, and you'll turn it in by clicking on that blue plus button and submitting your work.